Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. It's your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I am so excited to be back with you for another episode of the BGC Book Club. So come on in the room, as we like to say here, and get ready for what's going to be a very good conversation with one of my favorite authors. I talked to her a little bit before we came online, but I want to let her know her book is one of my favorite books of the year, actually. So she's hearing that for the first time behind the scenes. I can see her smiling. But if this is your first time, I am Marcy Thomas, and I'm coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, with a whole bunch of other places in between. And it's just a pleasure to always be here with you to share those books that are written by, for, and about us. So tonight's special guest is her second time actually coming to the BGC Book Club with her second book, because I always tell people once you've been here, you're always welcome to come back, and this particular guest is no exception. So tonight we are going to be diving into August Lane by the one and only Regina Black. Now, she is a former litigator, current law school administrator, and a lifetime romance reader who writes about art, identity, and love in the modern South. Her debut, The Art of Scandal, was named the best romance of 2023 by Publishers Weekly, Amazon, Audible, and the Chicago Public Library. Her second novel, August Lane, which we'll be discussing tonight, became an instant USA Today bestseller and was praised as a powerhouse of the genre by the New York Times Book Review. Regina currently lives in Little Rock, Arkansas with her husband and her daughter. Without any further delay, let's welcome Regina Black back to BGC Book Club. Welcome, Regina.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Yes, it's good to be back. So, well, first of all, congratulations on all the buzz you've been getting about the book.
Thank you so much. That has been amazing. So thank you.
Yes. And as I said, it's been one of my favorites so far this year, just because, I love to read, obviously, but I also love music. And, as we talk about when we get into the story, it's also paying homage to country music specifically. Yeah. So, well, what was it that made you decide to tell this particular story? Because obviously you were working on it before Cowboy Carter.
Yes, I was. Yeah, so it's interesting because it was a few things. So the original idea for the plot came to me like 15 years ago, actually. So I heard this song. There's this song that came out a long time ago by Ben Folds, and it's called Belinda. And it was about this guy that wrote this song about his ex who he cheated on. And it was his only hit. And it's the only song anybody wanted to hear him sing. And I just remember thinking, that sounds terrible. And I immediately thought that would make a great book. And so, flash forward a few years, my debut was on submission with publishers who were considering whether to pick it up or not. And I had to work on something else. And I thought of the Belinda idea. I had also, this was around 2021, I had started listening to Reese Palmer's radio show, Color Me Country, which is amazing. Everybody should listen to that. And I was getting introduced to all these different country singers that I'd never heard of, like country singers of color. And I loved it. And also that year, Linda Martell, who everyone knows now, she got an Equal Play Award from CMT. And I read about that. And I remember thinking, who is Linda Martell? Never heard of this person. So I looked her up and started reading about her. And it was just fascinating. Her story was fascinating. And that's when it all kind of clicked together. I was like, this is what I want to write about. So that's how that idea came to me. And so that was, it's 2025. That was like 4 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. So you were ahead of the game, and all this stuff just happening now. The book is definitely very timely, but of course, as I know, it's not like you just decided to write it 6 months ago.
No. When Beyonce showed up at the Grammys with that cowboy hat on, I'm thrilled. I was like, please let this be what it looks like. And it was.
Yes.
Because I think I was doing revisions or something when that happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting that it's timely in that way. And as I kind of said, yes, it's a love story because you like to tell love stories. But in the midst of this love story, we're also really getting an introduction for those who might not know a lot about country music through this couple and all of the people that surround them. And we're also getting to look at a fictional town in Arkansas, which is where you're originally from.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town.
Okay.
7,000 people.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this fictional town is Arcadia, Arkansas, and it's a combination of my hometown, which is a small town kind of outside the Little Rock area in central Arkansas, and Helena, West Helena, which is in southeast Arkansas. It's a predominantly Black town, and they have a blues festival there every year. So it's called the King Biscuit Blues Festival, which I love. So yeah, it's a combination of those two towns. I would say kind of the description of the town is more of the southeast Arkansas, but the environment and the culture of the town and the characters' experiences are based on my experiences growing up.
Mm-hmm. Which is good to hear that because we don't necessarily see a lot of books that take place in Arkansas, especially not Black people, especially not Black people in a small town that is predominantly Black. So I love the fact that you kind of brought that like historical piece into it as well.
Yeah, and that always would surprise me when I started traveling and I would tell people I'm from Arkansas and they go, "There's Black people in Arkansas." And there's a ton of Black people in Arkansas.
Right.
I mean, there's so many, particularly once you get central and southern, there are so many of us here. It looks a lot like a combination of Mississippi and Louisiana. Down there, and so many Black people have some sort of connections to Arkansas or Little Rock. When I went on a tour for this book, it was almost every single stop there was a Black reader that said, "I have family from Arkansas," or "I used to live in Arkansas." So yeah, it always makes me laugh when I hear that because we have such a big and rich Black community down here. So yeah, it's nice that I'm able to write this book and represent that aspect of the state that most people don't even think about us down here. So
right. And we know you're there now if we didn't know it before.
We're here.
And even to talk about country music in the context of this space, it makes sense because you're in Arkansas. I mean, not that Black people don't listen to country music in other places, because again, as you stated, it's something that a lot of people in the South, they may come up listening to it and things like that. But it makes a lot of sense that in a little small town in Arkansas, that country music probably is going to be a thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, and like I said, I based it on Helena, and like they have the blues festival down there, but once you start listening to blues, particularly in this region, the line between blues and country starts to blur when you have those Southern influences. And sometimes it literally is a difference of who's on stage singing it and what do they look like, and whether it gets called blues or country. So I kind of wanted to capture that feeling in this book. And that's some of the themes I touch on in different places in the story. So
yes. So for anyone who hasn't had a chance to read it yet, first of all, I suggest it highly. August Lane. I'm showing you the picture again, but just give us like a synopsis of what the story is about.
Yeah, so August Lane is about, it's a story, it starts with Luke Randall, and he is a one-hit wonder Black country singer who lied about writing his only hit. And he is singing in dive bars in Memphis, like he's at the rock bottom of his career. He's 5 years sober. So he's not doing too well at the beginning of the book, and he gets this opportunity to revive his career from the manager of JoJo Lane, who is one of his favorite country singers. And she was big like in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And she is being inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. She's the first Black woman to ever be inducted. But in order to take advantage of that opportunity, he has to go back home to his small Arkansas hometown and face August Lane, who is his first love. And she is also the woman who actually wrote the song that he claimed as his own. So.
Yeah, so I mean, there's tension and everything and all that.
Yeah.
Just off of that alone.
Yeah.
Because first of all, there's this, the whole thing of you can't go home again. So what does that even look like?
Yeah. So going home is a big theme in country music, particularly going home to a small town. And when I decided where this was going to take place, like what the location was going to be, that's really kind of how I got the idea for August to be the person who actually wrote the song that was the one hit. Because originally it was just going to be, oh, he has to sing a song about this person.
Gotcha.
But when I decided, oh, he's got to go home to this small town instead of, keeping him maybe in Nashville or somewhere bigger, that's when I kind of really thought about, like, what if you don't want to go home?
Right.
And I started thinking about all the things back there that might keep him from wanting to go back or might have kept him away. And that's how I came up with the idea that he stole it from August. Yeah.
Which we know that kind of stuff happens in the music industry. I mean, we hear it all the time. There'll be a lawsuit about this or that or the other, or, people like those two notes came from my song, and like, did they really? But it is a thing to think about, that artists are oftentimes, maybe it's purposeful, which y'all have to read the book to find out if it's purposeful or not. But, these kinds of things can happen. And if you have built a life and a career off of everybody thinking that you are the creator, and it turns out that you're not.
Yeah. And that's what really interested me about that character. He was the first character that was very clear in my mind, because I immediately, when I thought of him, I thought, what does that do to a person who is at their core a good person, which Luke is, but you have this person who is a good person, but the worst thing they ever did was to the person they love most in the world. And like, what does it do to a person to have to live with that for over a decade? And to sing every time he sings the song, that is what it evokes in him. So it was very easy for me to kind of wrap my head around that character, because as someone who is a creator, I'm not a singer, I'm not a musician, but I do write. I know like how personal those things are to you, your creations, and the idea that your biggest success is your biggest regret. It's like, that's just torture. That has to be torture for a person. So, but it was also really fascinating for me as a writer to explore that.
Right. It's torture for him. And then looking from the perspective of August, how did she feel? Because of course she knows that this person has taken her work.
Yeah. And so of course, you're in a small town, you're going to hear that song over and over and over again, because there aren't many people in that town that have gone off to do big things. And so she's just constantly, she can't escape it, even if she wants to, which is, it's similar to, she's trapped in this small town. She's trapped in that moment where she lost this boy she loved. She lost the song she wrote. And that's kind of an overriding theme in the whole book. Everyone's stuck in some way, right? And so, for her, it's a different type of torture every time she hears it too. And, of course, they've been separated for years. So there's a lot of assumptions and there's a lot of bitterness that they have to work through because of it. So
Right. Which really, and we see it play out throughout the book.
Yeah.
When you've had this type of situation with someone, and now all of a sudden they're kind of thrust back into your life, how do you navigate all of those feelings? That you, as a person that you care for, but yet you're really pissed off at them at the same time.
And I don't know. They don't do a great job at the beginning, because she really never thought she'd see him again. Ever. And so this isn't something that she was prepared for. And I think in his mind, he was always kind of rehearsing what he would say, if he ever saw her again, that sort of thing. But you can imagine something like that, as many times, but the reality is never going to be exactly as it is in your head. So I feel like when they see each other again, they're just not equipped and they're not prepared for everything that comes rushing out in that moment. And they do, they make some mistakes at the beginning. So yeah, but they figure it out eventually. So.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things in this book, it's told really in a couple of different timelines because we have, what's happening. Well, actually, technically three. There's like a 2024, there's a 2023, and then there's a 2009.
Yeah.
So you were like going back, kind of talking about how they met and how all of these things happened in the earlier days, and then like 14, 15 years later, how it all, how everything kind of comes together and resolved or not resolved. You got to read it to find out. But so how was that going back and forth in terms of telling their stories?
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. Lots of Excel sheets. I kicked myself a few times. But it was really important to me to do that, because one of the things I love about second chance stories is the fact that you have these kind of two parallel stories in a way, but you also, it's like a single romance in another way. And that's how I tend to think of second chance. I think, anyone that reads romance knows that in a lot of romances, there's a breakup in the third act of the book. Third act breakup, and it's divisive. Love it, some people hate it. And when it comes to second chance romance, I always think of the third act breakup was the long period where they weren't together. That's how I think of it. And so the present timeline is that healing journey after they've had that really dark, time of this is what life is like without you. And so because I think of it that way, I really wanted to show you their entire love story in this book, where it started. And also just to show you why it's different. And I do think that's important when you're writing a couple that has kind of had a prior relationship. A lot of times you'll read and you're like, yeah, but won't they just break up again? Won't they still have the same problems? And I really think it's important to kind of show this is where they started and they've been separated and here's who they are now. And so you can have that comparison to understand not only why they are the way they are, but why they might get it right this time.
Yeah. Because I mean, the reality of it is, you figure they were teenagers when they met, and now they're older, they're adults, mature adults, and there is the growth that you do individually, or maybe not. Because some grown people are still like not, really grown. Grown in age, but not in anything else. But just thinking about, okay, yes, we had this relationship at this time. We've carried some regret for a while, and now we're back together, and we're more evolved, and again, maybe dealt with some issues, maybe have not. But what does that look like?
Right. And and the function. I'm gonna defend the third act breakup here for a second. I feel like that part of a love story functions as kind of evidence or proof of the longevity of a relationship, right? Like, because in a romance, you really do want to walk away from it feeling like these people are going to be okay. And seeing them not be okay without each other is a piece of evidence that they know that they need each other and that they're better together, because you've seen it and they've seen it and they've had that realization of like, this is what my life is like without this person, and it's miserable, and I am not my whole healed self without this person, right? And so that is absolutely what I was trying to establish with August and Luke. When the book starts, you see them both at low points.
Right.
And so I wanted you to see who they are without each other, really, and then see who they are with each other. and for it to kind of be obvious that they are
Right.
better together.
Better together. Better
Yeah.
together. In the telling of the early part of their
Mhm.
story, we really do get to see the things that bonded them together. I mean, obviously, we know that there's music involved because
Yeah.
that's the whole premise of the book. But we're also looking at the dynamics that they are both individually dealing with within their families.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this is their story. It's a story
Mhm.
about music, but it's also a lot about dynamics within families
Yeah.
and communities,
Yeah.
especially in close-knit communities where everybody knows everybody's business, so to speak.
Yeah.
So in telling that part of the story, I like the way that you kind of leaned into seeing what it would be to draw these two people who, might be popular, might be not for
Mhm.
different reasons, and how to see what's going on behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah. Like when I write romance, I really like to write a story about two fully realized like people. And so when I thought of August and Luke, part of it was like the structure of the book is a country song. So, it's broken up into the pieces of a song, that sort of thing. And so I knew I wanted to tell a story that felt like you were listening to a country song. That's what I wanted the plot to feel like. And anyone who listens to country music knows that it is depressing. It's sad. Um, but it's so yes, but people are like, this book is sad. I'm like, listen to country music.
What?
So, but so some of the themes that I tackled are like country themes, like regrets. Regret is a big theme of this book.
Mhm.
So that's one aspect of it. But also, I really like writing families, and I
Yes.
really like writing kind of the messy ways that like how we love each other and how it's not perfect. It's very imperfect.
Mhm.
And so when I just thought of these people and I thought of what might bring them together, I actually just, I don't know, like each of them kind of came to my mind with this weight behind them of
Mhm.
these like legacies and family dynamics and relationships with these people that kind of mirrored each other in
Right.
a way. And so it kind of also kind of makes the argument of why like these two people found each other out of everybody else in that town, and why they understood each other so well is
Mhm.
because they both were carrying kind of a similar weight behind them with their mother and the generational issues and things.
Mhm. Mhm. So in the case of August Lane, you already mentioned JoJo Lane, who
Yeah,
is the singer that Luke is supposed to sing with.
yeah.
JoJo is August's mother.
Yes. Yes. She is her mother. Yeah.
So I mean that's just wild in and of itself.
Yeah.
Okay, my ex is gonna come and sing this song with my mama, the
Yeah.
song that I wrote.
That's me. I like messy books.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
messy.
conflict and mess. And so when I figured out that he was gonna come home, I kind of brainstorm like what would be the worst way for him to come home as
Mhm.
far as August is concerned. Oh,
Mhm.
he's singing with his mother that abandoned me
Mm.
and didn't want me to be a country singer and doesn't want to sing with me, but she's singing with the guy that left me and stole my song.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like in that situation, I feel like we can all sympathize with how August reacts to
Yes.
that situation.
Yes. Oh yeah, her
So yeah.
reaction is I love it. I love her reaction to all of it. But I
Yes.
mean, but just thinking about that, it also shows like how sometimes family relationships can be really complicated because yes, her mother is known as this country artist. You already mentioned, she
Mhm.
put out a few albums. People know her. She's like an icon to some
Mhm.
in this genre, but she's like not wanting her daughter to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hear that even, with some of our real life artists that they may be like, yeah, I don't know about my kid
Yeah.
being in the business because of, because if they understand what the business really is, and then as you all read the book, you'll see that it's also deeper than that. It's not
Yeah.
not wanting her to be in the business.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's a spoiler that JoJo it struggled. It's a very hard choice that she made, and a lot of people to this day, like in real life, look at Black country singers and do not understand why they decide to do this because of what they have to deal with, the rooms they have to sing in, the way they're treated in business. When I was working on this, I interviewed 3 Black women country singers for the book. And they told me about their experiences in country and some of the stuff that they had to deal with. But they love it. Like, it's just, and that's, the first scene of the book is JoJo talking about why she decided to sing country and people asking her that question. And there's this feeling that one of the country singers I interviewed talked about that would come from people in her community, like Black people it wasn't a place of like ridicule or hostility. It was more like concern. Like, and it was, people would ask her, why are you doing this? Why do you persist? Because they were worried for her. They were worried about her safety in these spaces.
Right.
And that was very interesting to me and very powerful to me. And that also kind of made its way into the book. So, and that was one of the ways that I used JoJo's podcast as a way to kind of like capture the voices of those people working in the industry, and they kind of speak through her in the podcast. But yeah, so.
Yeah, and it's just something to really think about, because we know music industry just off the rip is challenging for a lot of people, even if they're in the genre that they're quote unquote supposed to be in. It can be a challenge. So then you add, whatever sexism, whatever, just regular racism.
Yeah.
Then you're like a Black person, a Black face, and what people consider to be a white space. So that is a whole nother layer.
Yeah.
Which, it's understandable why JoJo might be like, I don't know about this because it's been tough, and maybe my career could be more than what it is, but because people look at me like I don't belong here, they're questioning why I'm here. Of course, the white people in that space are doing that. And then sometimes the Black people are like, do you not care about us? Do you not love us? You think you're better than us? So that's as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I kind of speak to all of those things through JoJo, like through interview. And she talks about a lot of like the reaction to her work and like who her work is for and who she intended it for and what people hear when they listen to her. And that's something that is a combination of talking to country musicians, but also just kind of like being a fan of country music and listening to country music and my own kind of preconceived notions about who certain songs are for and who it was for. There's a reason why I never used to talk to my Black friends about country music. And it's because I never got the sense that it was supposed to be for me. It was just something I was listening to, but it never felt personal and it never felt like mine. And so I wrote a lot of that into the book, right?
Yes.
And those complicated feelings we have about this genre. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because as I was reading the book, of course, again, we know about what's happening now. I did go to the Cowboy Carter concert here in Atlanta, and it was interesting to see people of all races, colors, creeds. Everyone was at that concert. But it's because it's Beyonce. So people were there, but then also, right, I don't even know who it was, but I'm here in Atlanta, and she was at the football stadium, which is the Mercedes-Benz. Right next to it is the State Farm Arena, and there was a different concert going on there the night that I went. And like the people that were standing there were like giving us the evil eye and stuff like that. as we were coming up, all these people coming up, again, Black, some of everybody going to the Beyonce concert. And my cousin was with me, and she's like, why are they looking at us like that? I'm like, I don't know. But it's probably like, oh, that Beyonce, all the thoughts around it. And yeah.
Well, that was part of the inspiration. There is a subplot in the book about the reaction to JoJo being the first Black woman inducted in the Hall of Fame, which, as far as I know, still has not happened. There's no Black woman in that Hall of Fame. And I do think there's this sense of like ownership that has been challenged recently. And I don't think anyone likes it when you challenge kind of like their worldview or their frame of the world, right? When you come at someone who thought, country music was, for white people, founded by white people, was this Western thing, and you come to them and say, actually, it was not, and you start talking about Leslie Riddle and DeFord Bailey and where the banjo came from, that it was a West African act, it feels like an assault, or it feels like an attack on their belief system when it's just history, So I feel like there was just a lot of hostility because it felt like an attack on like their way of life. One of the things that I find interesting is how many times people in the country music industry that didn't like the fact that Beyonce came out with that album would complain about her not like extending a hand of fellowship to other country musicians. This has been the constant complaint about the way Beyonce released her album, is that she didn't play the game, right? She didn't go to the country music station. She didn't buddy up to the other country musicians. She didn't do it correctly. And it's kind of this authenticity type complaint, like you're not real Nashville because you didn't play the Nashville game, when the Nashville game has been close to us for generations. Like they don't ever let us in. So it was resentment because she didn't ask permission, which I think which she has that big, thing on her concert that's like never asked permission for something that was yours to begin with, basically. Like that criticism of she didn't do Nashville right. It's funny to me, but that is their complaint, that she didn't come to them and she didn't kowtow to them and she didn't let them let her in. So, but the reason that you don't see many Black country musicians is because so many of them were trying to play the game and trying to wait for the radio to play them and trying to wait to be accepted. And they never were.
Yeah. They never were. And it just makes me think about, the people who are coming up now, Shabuzi and some of the others in the book you mentioned, the Warren Treaty, just other folks that are doing, more country / folksy / Americana / bluesy, because hey, whatever we do, we're gonna make it a gumbo, right? It's gonna be all of that. And them maybe having a core audience, but not necessarily getting the types of audiences that others would get. And so we do see that play out in this book as well.
Right. And then there's also and this is something I touch on in the book too, a lot of times they don't know what to do with you because the people that are the gatekeepers and that are in power, they have a playbook and they have a vision in their head of who country music audiences are and who you're talking to. Well, then you have someone like JoJo in the book, or you have someone like, Beyonce, who makes this music that they're like, I'm not actually sure who this is for, because they don't see those listeners. They don't see those fans. They've never been part of the equation. And we're used to that, right? Like, as an author, as a Black author, I'm used to that. Like, you write a book and they try to figure out who your readers are. But a lot of your readers are in spaces that they've never even engaged, because that's just not the audiences that they've been considering. So they don't know how to find them. So they don't know what to do with your product, and they don't know how to package you. It's the same thing for Black country musicians. They make this music and it's like, is this for white audiences? Is this for Black audience? Are there Black country fans? Where are they? What do they listen to? And I think Beyonce is a fantastic example of, yes, they're here. There are Southern Black people here. There are people, Black people that go to rodeos, that love Western gear, that love Western sounds, but they also listen to Beyonce. These fans are here. So yeah, it's definitely something that it really interested me. Obviously, I'm passionate about this. And it's very much woven throughout the book.
Yes. When you said the rodeo, I'm thinking about the Bill Pickett rodeo. I missed that. It travels. Been doing it for many, many years. I have missed it the last couple of years. Hopefully, I can catch it when it comes back to Atlanta next year. But that's existed for a long time.
Yeah, like I remember in high school going to the Black rodeo. So
And then I'm thinking like now, like all of the trail ride dance parties and stuff like that. I mean, in some cases they might be dancing to R&B or whatever, but in other cases they're making music, that fits that whole Southern aesthetic. So, and that lifestyle. So it definitely isn't that Black people aren't a part of it. It just hasn't been maybe more underground that people don't realize that it exists. But like when you talk about the music, I mean, I'm old enough that I grew up watching Hee Haw on TV.
I saw some reruns.
Some people are like, Hee Haw, what the hell is Hee Haw? But I grew up, I enjoyed watching Hee Haw growing up. Or hearing a Dolly Parton song or Kenny Rogers song, certain things. I was telling you before we came on, Oak Ridge Boy had a song called Elvira. I love that song as a little kid. So it's like it's not that.
Yeah, I feel like we all have those songs. And one of the things I wanted to do was to write this book so we could have conversations like this. Like we could find each other and have those conversations of like, oh, I grew up listening to Reba McEntire and Fancy was one of my favorites. Or remember Lionel Richie's country song Stuck on You on his album. And I just think that just makes me so happy that like everywhere I go and talk about this book, I meet people and we have these conversations. And I'm like, yes, we're here. We found each other.
I forgot about Lionel Richie. He definitely, he's from Alabama. So I mean,
from Alabama.
So I mean, it all kind of makes sense. But yes, just looking at JoJo August coming from this musical family, JoJo being her mother, and then of course looking at Luke, he doesn't come from a musical family, but he comes from a family where there's a lot of things that are going on, and he's kind of like, how do you describe him? He's like that popular guy that he's popular, but then kind of low key at the same time. So he is, coming into this as a young person, really having a lot of challenges and family issues and stuff like that, that we see that kind of play out and how that manifests over time as well.
Luke is, I always thought of Luke as someone, he's a survivor. Like at his core, he's a survivor, and that's his first instinct is to do the thing that's going to keep him safe because he does not feel safe at home, and so that was one of my primary thoughts about who he was as a person. And you see that through most of his decision making, and that's one thing he has to kind of grapple with and outgrow. And he has some really poor coping strategies as a young man in most of his life for everything that he's going through. And, he also is a people pleaser.
Yes, I was you read my mind.
He's a people pleaser. He wants people to like him. He wants to be liked. And that's also like a response to his upbringing. And so as a people pleaser, he's very popular. Because everyone has a good time with Luke. Everyone likes Luke. And to him, being liked means safety. And so, but that's a miserable way to go through life, like never feeling like you can be yourself. And, he's dealing with so much stuff and he has no one to share that with. And he and August meet in this situation. It's a spoiler, but they meet in the past, and bond kind of unexpectedly, and he gets kind of a taste of what it's like to actually be genuine with someone, and he gets hooked on it, and that is the way he and August bond and connect initially.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, we've talked about music, that you listen to, and, artists and Beyonce and all of that.
Yeah.
But just you say, you liked country, you have liked country music throughout your life. You've had, a connection to it. So in telling this story, you are actually like writing songs.
Oh, yeah.
For your artist.
I did.
So what was that process like for you to like turn yourself into a songwriter?
Oh, I hated it. It was so hard. That was another thing when I was writing the book. I was kicking myself. My debut was about visual artists, and I'm not an artist. And this was about singer-songwriters, and I'm not a songwriter. And both times I was kicking myself, like, why did I do this to myself? But I think I'm just drawn to artists because, they're creative. I'm a creative, and I kind of speak the same language. And in this case, it was very difficult for me. So I tried to write some songs for the book, and they were so bad. Bad. I told my editor, I was like, do not give me any notes on these songs. Pretend like they are not here. I know they're bad. And bless her, she did not. She left them alone. But eventually I figured out my problem was that I was trying to write music, and it's a book.
Okay.
And so, because if you look at the lyrics of most of your favorite songs, the lyrics are not that good. Reading them, they don't read well, and that's because they're meant to be paired with arrangements and music.
Right.
So once I kind of shook off this idea that I was actually writing a song, I in my mind I reframed it as you're writing book songs. So you need to write something that reads well, right? And I know somebody was like, "Oh, you're writing poems," but I'm like, if I would have thought that, I would have psyched myself out because I'm not a poet either.
Okay.
Yes. So, I was like, book songs. So I basically just thought about those lines the same way I did the prose in the rest of the book. And it ended up being so in the rest of the book, the prose and things that I had in the book was more about what the character was going through during that time, what the themes were that I was trying to touch on with those songs, and just generally the entire book. And that's how I ended up writing the songs for the book. And am I frozen?
Hello. Sorry about that. I had something crazy went on over here. Sorry about that, everybody. We're back. I'm back. But you were saying, you were talking about they were book songs.
Yes, they were book songs. And as soon as I started thinking about them as prose, similar to the rest of the book, and just kind of bringing in the themes that I was working with during those scenes in the book, and bringing in the characters' voices the same way I did the rest of it, but making sure I paid attention to rhyme schemes and beat meter like that. That's kind of how it all clicked and ended up coming together. So
Okay, so because you have a couple. I mean, there are snippets, and then there's a couple of like full length songs
Yeah,
in here. So, my question is, are you going to work with anybody to get those things published?
I don't plan on it. No, my publisher asked me that, and I was like, "Y'all are welcome. Y'all are welcome to do that if you would like to do it." But that was the extent of my musical ambitions. So
Wow, wow, well, that's pretty good for someone who's not
yeah,
a songwriter. Because
yeah,
I often thinking about that one because I'm a music lover.
yeah,
Because I was telling somebody, even though I read a lot of books, my first love really is music.
yeah.
Books are second, but it's like when you listen to a song, to your
Mhm.
point, where there's music and you're thinking, oh, there's that little ding there, or there's that little womp there. Like, what made them like really kind of figure out to put those things in those places to like really,
Yeah,
make the song better versus just, okay, I'm just gonna sit here and just sing and play a guitar or a piano, but what all these other things. So yeah, that's definitely
yeah.
a skill.
It is a skill, and I approach that as completely as a fan, as someone that I'm a big music listener. Music is a big part of my creative process. Lyrics are, and so that was my approach. But I also figured out my limitations
Right. Hey,
as a writer, and it's very much limited to the words.
right. And being able to quote unquote stay in your lane.
Yes, stay on lane, stay on lane.
Yes. So now speaking of music, you do have like a really nice playlist that you
Mhm.
created that kind of talks about music, some music that's mentioned in the book and just other songs. So like,
Yeah.
you have Beyonce on that list.
Mhm.
We talked about her, Shabuzi, the Carolina Chocolate Drops,
Yes, I love them.
Johnny Swim, who I've never heard
Mhm.
of,
Yeah, very
Leon
nasty.
Bridges.
Leon Bridges, love him. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to do like a mix of all kind of like this Southern music, the type of music that like if you listen to it one way, you're like, this is blues. No, it's soul. No, it's country. And I wanted it to just sound like kind of this mixture that just captured the vibe and the emotion of the book and the setting of the book. And so, yeah, and like that list was so long. I had to actually curate it and cut it down because
Oh, wow. Okay. Someone
there's
says
so much music I listen to.
I want to
Yeah.
say about 30, 31 songs. And what the
30,
one that yeah, the one that surprised me, which will probably surprise a lot of you all, but then if you listen to it, maybe not. Bill Withers, yeah, Bill Withers on here, and I'm thinking,
yep,
yeah, Grandma's Hands
yep.
definitely sounds like a country song.
It does. It does. That is definitely one of those songs that when it's reframed in your mind, you hear it.
Hmm.
And I used to listen to that song all the time, and I would never have said, "Oh, that's country." But then I actually read there's this great book Dr. Francesca Royster wrote called Black Country Listening for Evolutions. Phenomenal book, and I actually interviewed her when I was working on
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And she talks about so many of these Black singers that we've listened to all these years and their Southern roots and their country roots. And Bill Withers is one of the people that she kind of dissects and talks about his music. And so, and after I read that, I listened to him and I said, "God, she's right." Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, I added him to the playlist and name dropped him in the book. So
Yes, yes, yes. In addition to the playlist, you also have
mhm,
like a reading list. So, like the book
mhm,
you just mentioned by Francesca
yeah,
Royster, and also Alice Randall's "My
yes,
Black Country," which came
uh,
out just last year. So,
yeah, yeah. I read that when I was it was after I'd finished the book and I was like frustrated because it was so great. And it
hmm,
was so I was like, oh, I wish I read this sooner.
hmm,
She I had associated her with The Wind Done Gone, her novel, her
hmm,
Gone with the Wind novel. And I did not realize she has this extensive Nashville songwriting
hmm.
history. It's so fascinating. And I feel like um, a lot of people don't know that book exists. And I'm pretty sure there's an album
There is, there
that
is.
yeah, that goes along with it. But it's so great. So
I'm just going to repeat that one. It's Alice Randall's My Black Country, a journey through country music's Black past, present, and future. Yes, and I was at an event a couple of months ago. I did not get a chance to meet her, but she was there, and I was like, man, I wish I would have had a chance to like go up to her and talk to her, because I just think that that's pretty cool that she has that history. She has that her part of her journey is really tied to the genre of music. And then of course one of the others you mentioned is Imani Perry's South to America. So
I absolutely love that book. I read that book when it came out, and I say all the time, like, reading that book made me look at the South in a completely different way. Like when I read that, she is, and I read her more recent one, Black and
Blues. I have it over here.
And same thing. Just I love reading how she talks about our history in the South in particular, and in just ways that have this lovely balance of like holding it accountable while also, feeling like a tribute to history. So wonderful books.
Right. And I just think that that's really important, because it is a part of our history. And as much as we might, have these other genres of music that we listen to, understanding that there are like themes and threads that run through historically of the types of music that we've created, because we've had our hand in all of it, number one. And even sometimes when people go and sample stuff, they might be picking up a sample from a country song or from a blues or Americana song, because they're listening. It's all about the music and the heart and soul, literally behind the music.
And that is why it's so important. We're living in a time where, just learning about our history is being challenged, right? And I just feel like it's so important for us to do that and mind that, and not, give up the South or give up country music or give up these things, because, at the end of the day, there's not much in this country that we weren't part of and we didn't build, right? And so to have someone say, no, you can't have a thing that originally came from you, that is like, no, like we should be pushing back against that, and we should not accept that. So
Right. And we see all these themes and things come up in this particular book, how this couple, this community is really navigating all of the tough stuff, navigating the music world, helping to make sure that voices are heard, because that's really the center of it. Really, for me, it's like whose voices are heard and who gets to police whose voice gets heard and whose voice doesn't get heard.
And there's there's a section farther down the book where August confronts someone who is one of those gatekeepers, who is one of those people that makes those decisions, who, looks in the mirror and sees himself as a good person, or like, oh, I'm doing the work, and basically points out like, no, you're not. Like there is so much more that you can do in order to, like shine a light on all of these voices that you claim to care about. And so if nothing else, it would be great for people to read this book and kind of those gut checks. Like, are you in a position to, buy a book from a Black author, or lift up a voice that doesn't normally get lifted, or give credit to someone who deserves it, who didn't receive credit for the work that they did. So, I think all of those conversations are important. So.
And oftentimes, remember that if someone else doesn't want to give it to us, we can always do it for ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, as we have been doing.
We have been doing. Well, we're almost at time. I know we lost a couple of minutes, a minute and a half, or whatever, with that system glitch. But I have a couple of questions for you. Well, one thing, just to mention that you have a beautiful reading group guide that is available online. I love that. And that's I printed off part of it. That's where I got your reading list and all that stuff. I printed off part of it, but it's a really good guide. I like that you did that for
Yeah.
those groups that want to read it, because it gives you
Mhm.
a little bit of the background, some of the themes that we've talked about,
Mhm.
discussion questions there, because of course we don't do the spoilers here, but
Yeah.
we gave you some appetizers of what it's about,
Mhm.
and then also that reading list and things like that. So
Yeah.
thank you for creating that.
Oh, you're welcome. That is something my I reached out to my publisher about, and I told them I wanted to do it, and I gave them all of the information, so all of the content, and they designed it for me, and I
Mhm.
thought it came out great. So I'm glad. I mean, it's something I would want for a book that I was reading like this. So
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Right, because it talks about the story, of course. It talks about the themes that we touched on, and
Mhm.
it also gives you some homework,
Yeah.
which I love that. Like, do some
Yeah.
homework, learn a
Yeah.
little bit more about these Black country artists. So I love.
Yeah. There's also like a mocktail recipe in there
Yes,
too.
I forgot
I
about that.
tried it. I tried it before I like put it out.
Yes,
It's
I forgot
good.
about that. Yep, sure
Yeah.
is. So yes, if you're having an in-person book club or even a virtual one, you can
Yeah.
like have everybody make their mocktails and go through the questions, listen to
Yeah.
the music in the background. So it's
Mhm.
a good time. So thank you for
Yeah.
that,
You're
Regina.
welcome.
Now the cover of the book,
Yeah.
August Lane. I love it. I love
Mhm.
that. It's like a woman and a guitar,
Mhm.
and all of that has that country,
Yeah.
style writing on it. So,
Mhm.
so was that a real process to get that made, or?
Actually, it was pretty straightforward. It was they
Okay.
sent me some options, and when I saw the picture, that particular photograph, I was like, "This is it. This is the
Mhm,
one." And my agent chimed in. She said the same thing,
mhm,
and the font was on another cover, and so we just moved that font onto that photograph, and like it just came together pretty
mhm,
seamlessly. And there were some tweaks, but yeah, that was pretty much it. And they're
mhm,
like, "Yep, that's the one," and
mhm,
I love it.
mhm. And
Absolutely.
I like the cover. It definitely captures your attention. I also
Mhm.
have to ask you about the audio, because
Yeah.
I would say I read 80%, and then the last
Mhm.
20% I actually listened to. And so it's pretty. I like the way that it's done, because it's not
Mhm.
just one reader. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so it's a full cast audiobook. There you get August and Luke, and then you get the podcast parts. They produced it, so it sounds like an actual podcast throughout the audiobook. And I was thrilled about that. So that was something that I asked for and didn't hear anything about until like April. The
Oh
book came out
wow.
in July. And I found out because they just sent me the audio auditions. So, they send me the auditions and I get to weigh in on like, oh, this is my number one choice, that sort of thing. And the first voice I heard was Bonnie Turpin.
Yes, yes, she's a heavy hitter. For those of you
Yeah,
who
and
audio, Bonnie Turpin. That's
yeah, and it was funny because they didn't have names on the auditions, and I was like, I know exactly who this is.
they didn't want to sway you, right?
Wow. I was like, sorry, I know who this is. And so, but January LaVoy, I actually didn't recognize her because she was doing that pitch perfect Southern accent.
Mhm.
And she was phenomenal. And so she does JoJo's voice. And then William, I'd never heard him before,
Mhm.
but he is just a revelation to me. Like listening to him throughout the audio, so good. Absolutely loved his performance. So I am thrilled. It's such a great audiobook. So
It is.
yeah,
And in reading or listening to the story, I
yeah,
could see, I could see someone doing an adaptation that we could see it on the screen. It definitely would be a good story for the screen.
that would be amazing.
I
Yeah,
think so. And I mean,
yeah.
I'm not just saying that. I
I-
think that it would, because it's something that we haven't seen. And so,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it would be really fun. People always ask me who I would cast, and I have no idea. Like it's probably singers, but like I don't know, but yeah, I could absolutely see it as like a movie or a short television series. So
Yes, because it's definitely different, and I think a
yeah.
lot of people would like really lean into, the story, not just in the
Yeah.
forms that is already available, but to actually be able
Yeah.
to put it on the screen. So
Yeah.
my last question for you is, I know that the book has only been out since like the end of July, so it's maybe about 6 weeks old at this point, in and
Yeah.
around here. So are there any places or spaces that you're going to be in the coming weeks ahead that people can perhaps come out and see you, get the book signed,
Yeah. I'm going to be in Arkansas. I'll be at the 2 literary festivals. There's one in Northwest Arkansas, and there's one here in Little Rock called Six Bridges. So I'll be at both of those. And that's the end of September is when that starts, those 2 weeks. And then I will be at the Southern Book Festival in Nashville. And I can't remember the date of that, but I will be at that one, and then I will be at the Steamy Lit Fest in Anaheim, California, and that is Halloween weekend. And so that'll be it for this year. But next year, I've got quite some festivals and things lined up. So yeah, I'll be out and about at some different events.
Well, that sounds good. And anyone who wants to know about those events, of course,
Yes.
Regina's information has been scrolling. So
Yes.
you can go online to her website or check on social media and find out where she will be. So thank you so much for this conversation. Again, I really love this book. It's getting a lot of buzz, rightfully so. People say one of the best romances of the year, one of the best books of the year, and all of that. And I would have to agree that, I love your writing anyway, Regina, but, I love this one, especially, learning some things about the music and just really thinking about the music, thinking about the things that lead people to, certain types of music or whatever, and all of that. So thank you so much for telling the story of Luke and August and JoJo and them.
All of them.
And them. There's other folks in there too.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Yes, and I will let you grab some water or whatever. I'm just going to say a quick good night to everybody. I'll see you in just a second, Regina.
Okay.
Thank you. Off the screen. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the conversation. Again, I do apologize. I had a little system glitch, but that's what happens when you go live. Things can happen in the midst of a live conversation. So thank you for everyone for hanging in there. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. And please go out and grab a copy or listen to the audio or look in your library, wherever the case may be, because that's very important as well. Our libraries and all the different places where you can get books. Be on the lookout for August Lane. If you don't have a specific place, it is available at the Brown Girl Collective Bookstore, which is just that, browngirlcollectivebookstore.com. That is a part of the Bookshop platforms. If you like to shop on Bookshop, you can shop at the Brown Girl Collective Bookstore. So just a couple of announcements not tomorrow, Wednesday nights. If you're watching in real time, Wednesday, which will be the 10th of September, I will be here with Clavis Natera with the Grand Paloma Resort. And then a week from today, we have another romance with Jasmine Guillory and Flirting Lessons. So those are the next 2 authors that are up on the docket for right now. And things are continually being booked. Matter of fact, while we're sitting here with my phone, when the computer went out and I looked at my phone right quick, somebody else booked while Regina and I were talking. So there are always new and wonderful authors, both in fiction as well as nonfiction, that are here in this space. So I look forward to seeing you all again here real soon. And in the meantime, keep reading and take good care of yourselves. All right. Have a good night.